I think I might know the issue there. All right. Good there. Heidi, give me a check 1 2.
Check 1 2.
Talking to the mic.
Check 1 2. Hello.
You
Hello,
got to get
everybody.
close. You got to get close.
Up close and personal.
All right. Now we should be good. Let me just check. We got 4 people watching this. So somebody give me a.
Hey, people.
All right. I think we're good. I think we're good. All right. All right. We're gonna get going then. All right. So I got to get one sip before we get this
Oh, cheers,
cranking.
sir.
Cheers. This has been a long time coming.
It has.
So, welcome to Barcode Live, live from the barn. Um, and we are talking to the one and only Heidi Sass tonight. Heidi, thank you.
Thank you.
Um, so, as a security professional, I've always been interested in the overlap between the cybersecurity side and the privacy side. And so over the years, you and I got to know each other. I don't remember exactly how we got linked up. It could have been the Data Diva.
I think it was friends that knew us and said you guys should talk to each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got to talk closer.
Oh, I'm
There
sorry.
you go. There you go.
Yeah.
I'll crank you up.
Well, we have mutual friends, and they said you guys should probably talk to each other, and so
Yeah.
we did, and they were right, and that's why they're friends.
And now we're
Yeah.
here. And shout out to the Data Diva and Jeff
Absolutely.
Jogish.
Yeah, Jeff. What's
To-
up?
And so so I've always been interested in the sort of the overlap between security and privacy, as we all should be. And I want to announce that Heidi is working together through Barcode Security, and we're going to be offering some services that address those overlaps and gaps. And our goal is to provide businesses with greater value across their entire data pipeline. And that's really why we're recording this podcast tonight and talking about that topic. Is just to provide you guys with the intel for a better approach. You don't need to hire a law firm or a consulting company and pay them really to stay with you for 3 years and go through everything that you do. There's an easier way to do that, to get actionable insights from what you're already doing. So we believe at Barcode that our method is more efficient and more effective. So it comes down to your famous tagline. Do you want to say your tagline?
People hire a consultant to tell them things they don't already know.
That's true. Very true. And that insight captures our special sauce, I think. Um, so again, thanks for joining me and doing this live show. Let's kick things off. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, and your background, and really what ultimately led you down the path into the data privacy field.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, I have a background in consumer rights, and I did that for a long time. But when I started to realize how much of our lives are just devoted to data, I wanted to focus more on that area because other than the cash in your pocket, you can't prove anything about yourself without data. So I wanted to know, how does data work? Where does it come from? What do people do with it? Where does it go later? And how is it being used as a product? Because I think it's an asset. And people need to look at it more like a currency. And the regulations are coming now because people started to see harms from the use of the data that they don't have control over. So I started looking into privacy and technology to find out, how does this stuff work, and what can I do to help people affect change in a positive way.
Yeah, that's great, and we're so fortunate to have you on the front line, and someone of your skill set helping to lead the charge with that. I do want to quickly mention, and I failed to mention this up front, is that you may notice from this live stream, and let me get the viewpoint there, that we're broadcasting from the barn. This is the barn, and it's a very special place with a very very special meaning. And Heidi, if you don't mind, can you just talk about the significance of this barn and what lies within this special facility?
Sure, sure. The barn is a place that we have our tools. My husband and my family, we like woodworking, and we have a lot of different tools out here. And since we talk about digital tools all the time, I thought it might be fun to come out and sit amongst the physical tools so that we could have another conversation. There's a lot of parallel between the two. A lot of these tools are really older tools and they had to be rebuilt. I've been fascinated with tools all my life, not just what they can do and what you can do with them, but how are the tools made? How do the tools work? And that sort of level of interest in dealing with tools, in addition to what can you do with them. So I enjoy talking about digital tools, but at some point you need to be done with your workday and leave the office. And so when I leave the office, this is what I come out and do, and do things with your hands.
Yeah.
So that's where my fascination with the tools came from.
And I've seen some tools here that I've never seen before. So
Yeah, there's some
could
cool
you
ones.
could you mention some of the tools that you have here?
Yeah, there's a drill press right over here, and of course we have the beer fridge. That's a popular tool. But there's a table saw, and bandsaw, jointer, grinder, sander. Over in the corner, the big giant green one is a lathe. This is the big bandsaw. You could mill a whole log with that. And then a regular chop saw. And upstairs is the workshop where the children have their tools because they also build their own wooden toys and things like that.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I got the full tour earlier, so very impressive. Um, so yeah, you're a proven leader in executing strategy that helps organizations strengthen their data privacy posture. Talk to me a little bit about your methodology for doing that.
I like to go into a business. It depends on who brings me in. Sometimes the general counsel wants to bring in some help. Sometimes, someone is working on privacy there, and they're maybe not a chief privacy officer, but they are the person in charge of the privacy for the company. Sometimes they'll bring me in. Sometimes the executive, the CEOs will want to bring me in. To talk to them about what are we doing now, where do you see gaps in the analysis that we have. I like to work on projects depending on who brings me in and what it is that they're looking to get. If they need a serious amount of work and I need to build a team, I like to build a team from the existing assets within the organization for a couple of reasons. One, you don't want a consultant to come and live with you forever and charge you the whole time and get into everything that you've done everywhere, every day, because you just need them to handle this particular part of the issue. And two, because when you are done, I'm only one person. And so when I am done with a project and I walk away, I want to have the knowledge base left behind so that they don't feel the need to come back for every single question. Part of that is training the assets on what you need to handle on your own and what you don't. So when to ask for help is a great thing to train people on because for the most part, people can handle a lot of the issues on their own. When you come to these particular kinds of issues, that's where you're going to need to ask for some help, either to just affirm what you've chosen to do or to suggest some other ideas and alternative paths you might want to explore before you take action on that.
What would you say is the percentage of people that sort of have an idea in the direction that they want to go, and are accurate in that?
You know, it depends on the organization. I've worked with some smaller organizations and they had some great people who were trying to do the right thing. They just were missing the key pieces of how do I do this? This is my goal and this is the outcome I'd like to see, but I'm not quite sure how to get to that point. And so that's kind of easy to help them line up the pieces to help them get there. And then I've worked with some larger organizations that really just put you on the back burner because there's nothing on fire in your department right now, so I'm not going to give you attention. Yes, and those are the kind of organizations that you see on the news and on the court docket later because they're not paying attention because they're just, band-aiding and going as fast as they can to keep churning out things. But the longer you ignore the issues of data,
Mm,
the more trouble you're going to get into. I
yeah.
mean, doing nothing and acting surprised when something happens is not a good look. But it's a mindset that needs to shift with businesses because they've been using data for a very long time, and they haven't had personal rights attached to it. So now that that's catching up to them, um, you're going to have to look at the asset differently and treat it more like a currency. You know, I suspect that data is going to divide itself into tranches, just like other investment vehicles.
Mm.
So you're going to have, data that's verified and you can count on using it. It's valid. It's the highest quality data. Then you're going to have the maybe it's compliant with most of the regulations kind of data. Then you're going to have the slurry because people are still going to buy that stuff.
Yeah.
But that, I think, is eventually where we're going to see data broken into tranches moving forward instead of just scrape it or buy it from whoever you want. Because data quality is a problem. If you have a lot of money invested in your infrastructure and you're feeding it garbage data, you're going to get garbage results.
Yeah, and I think that's regardless of industry, correct? So, like, how does that strategy change, or does it change drastically depending on the industry dynamics?
Oh, it definitely changes depending on the industry. If you're, like at a highly regulated vertical like banking or healthcare or something like that, then you have a lot more risk involved. And by this point, you shouldn't be asking questions like, how should we set up, this particular consent management program? Like that should have been there a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, in looking at different companies, sometimes I am surprised by how little security and privacy are working together because you've got some top-notch people doing everything they can to defend the data working in cyber, and then you've got people that want them to change some of the way they do things in accordance with privacy policy and some things that they're doing, but they're not necessarily working together because the privacy people are talking to counsel and then counsel's relaying the message to IT and then IT is like, what do you want? It's
Mm.
just exactly, it's like kids playing telephone. The message gets lost.
Right.
So, the more that we have open communication lines between all of the team players, the better off you're going to be. Like data lives in silos, but people don't.
Yeah.
So, you need to have interoperability between your humans as well as, your tools so that people can say, here's the goal for this department. What are you doing in that department?
Yeah. And so, what's the benefit of having an outsider come in and give that outsider viewpoint? I mean, I think that's really important.
Well, I worked on the inside and the outside, and honestly, coming in from the outside, you just have a different perspective. It's one of those things where if you are going to work and you are doing the grind and you're putting in the effort every day just to make it through, you don't have time to learn new things. You don't have time to have creative thoughts. You don't have time to wonder, what if this
Mm-hmm.
could be done differently, or what did happen to that thing that was a problem and it just kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have enough time for that kind of reflection that it takes to dedicate to building a better infrastructure because you're band-aiding what you've got to keep the car running down the road. So bringing in someone else to say, oh, well, you're using too many tools because you already have these particular tools working in this department and they have these capabilities that you could expand to this department. That's a question of just access. It's just access controls. You don't have to vet and buy and integrate a whole new tool for somebody to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Most likely not.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that tool reference.
That's what I do.
um, how does strategy change when you look at third party vendors and supply chain?
Wow. So third-party vendors are a big risk category here. Like I said, I think businesses are using too many tools. So if you are looking at your data map and you're looking at all of the different variety of tools that you're using, the first thing you need to do is cut that list down because the fewer vendors you have, the fewer risk you have, just period.
Mm.
But also, like I said, with the expanded capabilities of existing tools that you're already using, do you really need to get another tool or can you just use this tool for these dual purposes and only use the one vendor for that? Now, on the other side, you don't want to use just one vendor for everything that you do. You don't want to give the keys to the kingdom to just one vendor and you're beholden to them the whole time.
Yeah.
So, depending on the industry that you're in and the tools that you need to use, I think that's just a better approach.
Yeah. Yeah, because that one vendor is essentially a extension of your team at that point, and could be introducing more
Well,
vulnerabilities.
you don't have leverage with a vendor, with a giant vendor like that wants to be the I want to be everything for you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why you end up with antitrust trials.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
saying.
Um, does tooling exist for organizations to that they can leverage on their own to help manage some of this?
They could if they knew how to read some of the reports. Like if you're following the supply chain of an ad campaign, it's going to get down to the code and tags and log level data and those sorts of things. Number one, do you have access?
Mm-hmm.
And if you do have access, do you have technical skill on your side that knows what they're looking at? So, sometimes I get calls from people and they say, I'm looking at this, report that I got. Can you tell me, I don't know what I'm looking at. Can you tell me what I should be getting out of this? And at that point, it's,
Yeah.
you can't because you can have the tooling, but if you don't understand what the reports say, and then you also know how to take remedial steps to follow what you found out in the report, what you've done is create prior knowledge of a problem
Mm.
that you didn't do anything about. So you created additional risk in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So you can hire people that run tools, for different reasons, code scanning tools and those sorts of things. And that is
And just tell me, like, code scanning tools. Can you define that?
so if you work in the health industry, all of your data needs to be tagged in a certain way because a lot of the data that you're going to be used, like at a doctor's office, a lot of the data that you're going to be used is going to be covered by HIPAA. So you need to have your data tagged. Some of it's health data, some of it's sensitive data, of the personal data that you're working with. If you don't have that tagged correctly, and remember it's changing all the time, then that can run into issues for you, in your advertising, HR, and other ways that you use that data. So you need to make sure that it is tagged appropriately. It's not about your data; it's about the metadata. So that's the important thing. Washington Health State, or Washington State Health Data Act, it says that health data is now defined as anything that's related to the individual for their health. For
Mm.
example, one of the examples they gave is deodorant. If somebody's buying deodorant, you don't feel like that's health information, right?
No.
Unless you're selling a widget that tracks their perspiration. And now it's health data,
Okay.
right? And so the goalpost is moving in some respects, but if people take the long view of it, it's been going this direction for a long time.
Yeah.
Consumers are pushing the pendulum back from the I have no control of my data to I want more control of my data. They'll never get to I want absolute control of my data. But now is where we find the time to meet in the middle and find out legitimate needs of businesses for data versus individual rights and expectations of how their data is used.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, I want to switch gears for a second and, say privacy engineering is relatively a new role that I've seen, and I know more organizations are employing data privacy engineers. Just curious from your perspective, how have you seen that role evolve, and where do you feel like that role specifically is headed?
I think it's fascinating. I really do. Yeah, when I started working in privacy, GDPR was new, and people were saying, "Hey, what's everybody doing? Working on cookie banners, right?"
Yeah.
Yeah, but they were doing dark patterns because they thought they were clever. Yeah. And I was like, "This is what we're doing? No, this isn't really how you need to handle these things." So I started looking for better resources, and I found Michelle Dennedy's book, the Privacy Engineers Manifesto. Like
Mm.
it's the book, and she open sourced it. So I mean, it's just out there for everybody because she just wanted more people to learn about this stuff, and I'm so glad that she did. And so that book was great, and it got people started to find out how does stuff work.
Mm.
Because you can have a policy all day long, but unless you understand a little bit more of the technical back end, like your cookie banner says, click no, don't accept, don't collect data. And then if you look at the back end and it's grabbing all kinds of data, you've got a problem.
Mm-hmm.
You've got all kinds of problems at that point. But you have to know to be able to look in the back end and find out what's happening in the backside of this system. So the privacy engineering crossed through that line from the policy and checking boxes into the back end of the system, the metadata, the tags, classification. Now it's moving into algorithms and how the metrics are weighted, determining fairness, disparate impact, those sorts of things. So I've seen it's ramped up a lot in terms of technology, but there are a lot of great resources out there. Nishant Baharia's book is fantastic as well. It's a runtime book for engineers. It's called Data Privacy.
Mm. Okay.
And that is I've worn that book out, and I
Mm.
all the people that I've taught to get through the privacy exam, they have that book as well.
Okay.
It's the how to do the thing book, and he properly gives respect to Michelle Dennedy for writing the first one.
Yeah.
And this is the second one, and it moves on, so it's kind of the second generation. But all the information is still good.
Okay.
Because if you don't know how data works, then you're not going to be as effective as someone who employs more of the engineering side of the skills. I am not an engineer, I'm a lawyer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I needed to learn how these things work so that I could give the right advice and to, design programs the right way, to bring in the right team members and people that you need to set up the infrastructure for, the long haul.
Yeah, and you mentioned the privacy exam. So
Mm-hmm.
can we just switch there for a second and just talk about sort of some of the privacy certifications out there, and some of the training that someone may want to look at if they are looking to get into this field?
Man, I'm glad I'm drinking right now because we're going to talk about the IAPP. You had to go there.
I'm right there with you.
Oh, he had to go there. The exams have come. I have to give them credit. The exams have come a long way because instead of testing on the body of knowledge and stuff you need to know that's more academic, they're testing on useful skills and things that you need to know how to do for the companies. Like in the tech stack. So, I think that is encouraging. But I will tell you that in mentoring people through the privacy exam, uh, I thought that that would be the most useful thing to do to get them working in the field. But I learned after, more than a handful came back to me with their first impression of what it's like working in the field.
Mm.
They were terrified because they took the exam, they were certified, they got a new job, they were there, and then they were overwhelmed immediately with ever-growing responsibilities, and they felt like they had just gotten into the field and wanted to feel a little bit more confident about what they were doing before they felt like they were thrown under the bus. So, but that's just the nature of privacy. Like, it's an ever-expanding field, it's rapidly changing, and if you're not staying on top of it, you're falling behind.
Do you feel like the training and the certifications now are becoming more progressive versus just educating
Oh, I think the
users how to?
training is definitely more lucrative now for whoever's doing the training. The training is lucrative. I did it for free. Um,
But I mean the content itself, is it you know trying to educate people on being less box checkers and more progressive on the privacy engineering side, or do you still feel like there's still a ways to go to have that as a baseline?
well, there are different exams. The CIPP US is more on policy,
Okay.
those sorts of things. The CIPPE is also on policy, but they have the technical exams, the CIPM and CIPT. So you can do the more technical exams, and I think those are useful for people to have. But I just want to say one thing about certifications because you can demand you have 17 certifications to come and do this job. Meanwhile, teenagers on telephone taking down a casino in 10 minutes. So
Mm.
really, that's what's on the other side of what you're dealing with. Do you really need to stick on how many certifications people have to get them working in the field?
Hmm.
So don't stick on how many certifications you have. It's what do you have skills doing, and the social proof. Who are the other people that you've worked with in these areas that can tell me whether you know what you're doing or not?
Yeah.
Because this business is now based on trust.
Yeah.
Who can you trust?
100%.
Who are you going to let into your system to go in and analyze your gaps and to help lead you in the right direction? It's based on trust.
Yeah, 100%. So let me ask you then, if it's based on trust and you're looking at bringing someone in, what can you do proactively to ensure that that trust is established?
Trust has to be earned.
Okay.
That's just where I'm at. Trust has to be earned. I
So how do you
think
take
like
that calculated risk of bringing someone in?
who am I bringing in?
Third party,
Oh, a third party vendor?
third party vendor.
Oh, I don't have any trust at all. That's where I start.
Okay.
No, for real. I don't trust you at all. Who are
Yeah.
you? What do you want? Why do I have to pay you to do this?
Yeah.
Am I already paying somebody else to do this? Like no, that's where I start with the vendor. Don't get me started on generative AI and people wanting to hook that up to their data lake house that is unstructured. Like don't get me started on that.
Well, that's my next question.
Ah.
You must have read my mind. So yeah, what are your thoughts on well, let's I do want to define what I mean by generative AI. I want to say we'll say sanctioned generative AI, and
Mhm.
then we'll also say unsanctioned generative AI. And what are your thoughts on both, if your perspective differs from each.
Well, chat came out a year ago,
Yeah.
almost a year ago, and people lost their minds. Oh my God, it's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
Right? And they just thought, oh, this is amazing. It got to the point where insurance companies were sending notes out to law firms saying, you need to hit the brakes on replacing your associates with this stuff.
Wait, say that again?
Yeah, insurance companies went to law firms and said, you need to hit the brakes on replacing associates
Wow.
with this tool. You have to have humans in the loop.
Yeah.
The insurance companies were like, yo. So, I mean,
Wow.
yeah, shout out to the insurance companies for watching
Shout out
out.
insurance
yeah,
companies.
well, I mean, not often they go get a shout out, but they're the ones that are going to have to clean this up. And they saw that comment and said, wait a minute. Because most likely they saw what we saw. If you have been working in consumer rights and you understand what laws are there to protect consumers and consumer rights, you are not surprised about what you're seeing in the news at all right now. However, people don't know about consumer rights, and they're learning quickly. So copyrights, privacy, all of these different rights that people have in the data that was just scraped and put together with massive amounts of compute to say, here's this great new magical thing. And then people found hallucinations, and they found all kinds of other model errors that people working in AI already knew about. Models are fragile, models forget, like these sorts of things. They have to be active, supervision, monitored. You have to test them, you have to remediate them. They learn like a child. AI learns like a child, including the large language models. That's just even more garbage from the web, because everything on the internet's true, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Good. So put all that in a pot and then give everybody a cup of that stew.
Yeah.
No thanks. So at this point, what I've seen the large language model companies doing is that they're trying to reassure people to keep the hype going by saying, you know what, we'll indemnify you and cover your expenses if you get hit with copyright claims by using our tool. Those sorts of things to make it a little bit easier for companies to go ahead and adopt their tool and implement it into everything that they have.
Yeah.
Saying, we're not going to use your company's proprietary data to train our model. Well, how do you know? How do you know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
How do you know?
Exactly. Safety rails are important too. So if you are using some of these generative AI tools and you've gone and integrated them into this and that, and you're loving the results, and that's great for you, but did you put in safety rails? Did you talk to the people in IT? Are they looking at network traffic? Do you have random API calls to GPT? It could be polymorphic generative AI assisted malware.
Yes.
So you don't know what that is. Is it somebody who's trying to do pictures of cats in hats? Or is it something writing code to subvert itself and take your whole infrastructure down?
Yeah.
You don't know, but GPT is excellent for writing malicious code too.
Do you yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. And finding vulnerabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you feel like generally that enterprise organizations don't know where to start with this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, they're using too many tools.
Yeah.
So for me, it starts with the map. You want to talk? All right.
Yeah, let's talk data mapping.
You want to talk about what's going on with your business? Where's your map? You don't have a map? All right. Well, I gotta go. So, right? Like, that's frightening. The first question that's frightening is, do you have a data map? And the answer is no. The second question that's frightening is, did you deploy that already? And the answer is yes.
And just to clarify,
the data map includes everything in the life cycle of your data. It's the sourcing. Where did you get the data? Are you getting it from a fire hose at Twitter? Are you scraping it from the web because somebody in your office has beautiful soup and knows Python? Like, where are you getting this data? Do you have a data sharing agreement with other companies? Is it even your data? So where are you getting the data? Once it's in your infrastructure, what are your tools doing to the data? Right?
Yeah.
And then where does the data go after that? How are you securing the data? Your data retention schedules need to be on point, right?
Yeah.
So, one of the cases on data retention schedules was Xbox. Xbox was caught recently by the FTC for holding on to data too long, and they said that it was a defect in their data retention schedule, and that's why they held on to children's data for too long. It cost them $25 million for that little defect in their data retention
You said
schedule.
that was a defect.
They said it was a defect in their data retention schedule.
Okay.
I'm not going any deeper into any of that because, But that's a big company who's supposed to be on top of these sorts of things. And so, that's part of your data map too. It's where does the data go after that, and do you have access controls in the right place? Do you have your data retention schedule set up the right way? Is it being affected? So if
Yeah.
you say, Bob's going to do the DSARs, right? And, well, let's find out how many DSARs Bob got. Well, it's in an inbox in his email. No, I'm sorry, that's not okay. That's just not okay, right?
Right.
So you've got obligations. The biggest thing you need to do to say that you satisfied your obligations is documentation. Right? When somebody sends you a request for something, says delete my data, you need to say I got it, and then this is what I did with it, and the data is gone, because the consumer can't verify that the data has been deleted.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And
Yep.
so you need to document that you did this, and you did this within whatever time period you needed to do this, if anything, to protect yourself. Let's take a line from the Mythbusters real quick. The difference between science and just screwing around is writing it down. Data science is the same way.
I should write that down.
Data science is the same way. If you don't write it down, you haven't documented it properly. So that, how else are you going to prove that you're really doing the best that you can?
Yeah.
The data map is so important. A lot of people are surprised when they see the data map just to see the number of tools that they're using.
Yeah, and again, I think that's an ever-evolving living document, right? Like
evergreen. It should be evergreen.
It should be embedded within.
Well, there are some companies, privacy companies out there that offer these types of tools where they can go and map the data for you, and they can keep it evergreen and those sorts of things. Those are nice and easy to walk into because it's already done. When I first started doing this, it was like me and a legal pad and my pen, like fishing through stuff and doing interviews with people to try to draw this out by hand.
Yeah.
But we have tools for that now, which is great. And I know a lot of the tool makers. I spend a lot of time collecting smart people because I can't know everything, but I do know how to read their research and talk to them and find out, do I trust you to know what you're talking about, so that I have these resources.
All right, well,
we're just about done, man.
We're just about done. I mean, do you have any, last minute words of caution or words of wisdom that you'd like to share?
Well, I'm excited to be working with you. I really am.
I am
think
too.
This is going to be great because, like, the overlap of the privacy and the cyber and things like that. Like, this is the better way to go about dealing with this. But also, like I said, it's about trust. People need to know who can you trust to help you through, navigate through these waters.
Absolutely.
So for businesses, if you just want a quick tip, I will tell you that from what I've seen, the two departments doing the shadiest things with your data are marketing and HR. So and also big risk categories for those departments too.
Absolutely.
So if you are going to start somewhere and finding out, what tools are we using and where's our data going and those sorts of things, even if you're looking to make cuts, because it's hard to raise capital at this time, and a lot of smaller organizations are having financial issues, and if they're looking to make cuts, I would recommend you start looking at those departments to see what tools are they using that you could pare down, because if they're using it in marketing but it also has the same capability for someone in HR, they can use the same tool. It's just an access control issue, but you also may be able to get rid of some of your vendors that way and decrease the amount of cost and risk at the same time.
100%. And I'm so happy and privileged to have you.
Compliance, saving people money, huh?
That's right.
Wait till I start finding new revenue streams for them to find out what they're doing with their data, because you don't collect data to secure it, you collect it to do cool things.
Yes.
Right?
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
So before we close out, what are you drinking there?
Gin and tonic.
Is that your
Yes,
poison there? Okay.
It is. And you?
A gin and tonic.
That's right.
Because you handed this to me, and it's really good. And then I'll close out with my signature question for you. If you opened a cybersecurity / privacy themed bar, what would the name be, and what would your signature drink be called?
Generated by SAS would be the name of the bar.
Okay.
SAS, not AI.
AI generated?
No, it's generated by SAS.
SAS generated.
Yeah, generated by SAS, not AI.
The OG SAS.
Well, I don't know about that, but yeah, we'll call it generated by SAS.
Okay.
And yeah, I don't know.
Would it be a G&T?
I don't know. I think I would probably make more money if I served like a spritzer and made that my cocktail, because if I'm gonna open a bar, it's probably just to make money.
Okay.
Not to hang out in.
Okay.
So I would waste all my profits. Right? So I'm gonna make like a nice little cocktail spritzer or something and charge a lot for it.
Love it.
Yeah,
Love
and
it.
don't come to my bar. If you show up at the bar and I give you a cocktail for free, though.
There you go. You just got to find it.
Don't come
That's
to my
it.
bar. No, don't come to my bar.
Don't come to the barn.
Invite only.
Invite only. Heidi, thanks so much. For those to watch, and just check out barcodesecurity.com. Check out the services tab, and we have everything listed there, and including what Heidi is able to help everyone with. So thanks again.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Thank you.
See everyone soon.
Thanks, everybody.